Come on in, Tone.
Yes, the levels are good. They're definitely good.
Golden Debate Show, earlymorningmob.com. Like, comment, share, and download.
Definitely hit it with...
Yeah, we're hitting it with it.
Hit it with it.
Shit's getting serious, Tone. I think we're on the precipice of World War III or something, dude.
Yeah, man.
It's really about Iran and Israel, but we're going to play it like Americans in Syria.
This is the Nobel Peace Prize winner we're talking about?
So, like, comment, share, and download, because we're going to start banging out these clips. Hunting for truth, hunting for knowledge. Golden ratio. Golden.
I'm just trying to wake you up, everybody. I'm trying to wake you up.
They're having trouble getting the gold that's being bought so
What are we listening to?
Early morning, my
As the U.S. military prepares to launch missiles at Syria, a group of renegade computer hackers with close ties to the Syrian military rallied to the defense of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad by attacking, of all things, the New York Times
serious,
and
like
Twitter.
Syria.
For the second time in 2 weeks,
Golden
the New York
Universe,
Times
one
website
love.
crashed on Tuesday. A group of computer hackers called the Syrian Electronic Army, supporters of Assad, claimed responsibility. The site was down for several hours before it was restored. Twitter, meanwhile, is investigating a hack on its own site. A nuisance, but no national security
They're having
threat,
trouble getting the gold that's being bought so quick.
They decide to go after financial institutions or other sectors of critical infrastructure. That will be far more concerning to the U.S. government.
All this as the U.S. gears up for an attack of its own on the Syrian military. Cruise missiles will be the U.S. military's weapon of choice. Four U.S. Navy-guided
They're
missile
having trouble
destroyers
getting the gold that's being bought so
each,
quick.
and at least one submarine are already in position in the eastern Mediterranean. The assault would come at night to reduce the possibility of civilian casualties. At the American Legion convention in Houston, Vice President Joe
They're
Biden
having trouble
pledged
getting the
Syria
gold that's
must
being
be
bought
held
so quick.
accountable.
There is no doubt who is responsible for this heinous use of chemical weapons in Syria. The Syrian regime.
The prime targets, planes, rocket launchers, and artillery used to launch deadly chemicals, but not the chemical weapons themselves. And the Syrian leadership, including President Bashar al-Assad,
have done this
are not
consistently.
on the target
President
list.
Reagan did it in Grenada. President Eisenhower did it in Lebanon. As commander-in-chief, he has the right to begin military actions. Now, if he's smart, he would certainly consult with the House and Senate leaders, with the members of the top people on the Intelligence Committee, the Armed Services Committee.
He could only really start war for, I think, something like 30 days.
Foreign Affairs Committee. But he doesn't have to. As commander-in-chief, I believe strongly the president has the constitutional right to carry this out. So it's really two different issues. One, he has the right to do it. Secondly, I think he's very smart to consult with the leadership, not with all of Congress and something like this.
I'm taking his own words as a senator, Boston Globe 2008. Quote, Senator Obama, the president does not have the power under the Constitution to unilaterally authorize a military attack in a situation that does not involve stopping an actual imminent threat to the nation.
Yeah.
Those are his words.
Yeah, and to me, the hardest thing to do with President Obama is keep track of what he says from one day to the next. Just like, for instance, he was against Guantanamo. Guantanamo is still open. He's carrying out drone attacks. All of these things he's doing. It's inconsistent. It's wrong. I'm not here defending President Obama. I'm just defending the office of the president.
Can you defend the threat to the United
Top 20
States?
podcast in the whole Golden Universe.
Yes.
The threat is, it's two. One, I think chemical weapons are a threat to everyone. Once that line is crossed, that puts the entire world at risk as far as the threshold being crossed, and I think severe action has to be taken. But more than that, is this will so strengthen Iran. You will have almost this axis of Iran and Syria, and which really puts the entire Middle East in peril, because then you have Iraq in there, and Iraq now has given its airspace to Iran. So if we don't stop this right now, I see just Iran becoming the dominant power in the Middle East.
I see the logic you're using. I mean, it's 6 pieces of chess or 6 moves of chess.
But the argument you're using is an indirect threat. Any intervention in Syria without a UN mandate would be a grave violation of international law. Do you accept that?
Well, I think the law of international humanitarian standards is a pretty important law. We work through international bodies. Of course we do.
I mean, there's a discussion.
Does there have to be a UN resolution?
Well, I would say the same thing that your foreign minister said, I believe, that no nation, no group of nations is bound by only one dimension of whether they make a decision to respond to any self-defense or any other violation of the kind of humanitarian violations that we saw in Syria. We are working with the United Nations. Our partners are working with the United Nations. And that's appropriate action today.
When there's 2 scripts to 3 going on and none of them are good, it's not good, people.
What are they? I mean, presumably they range from, I don't know, Tomahawk cruise missiles, strike to anything to troops on the ground and an invasion in the style of Iraq in 2003.
You should be Minister of Defense. You've just laid out
options. Does he want to take out Assad, and would his death be a welcomed outcome at this White House?
I appreciate the question. I want to make clear that the options that we are considering are not about regime change. They are about responding to a clear violation of an international standard that prohibits the use of chemical weapons. We are also very much engaged in an effort to support the opposition in its struggle with the Assad regime as the Assad regime continues to try to massacre its own people in an effort to maintain power. And it is our firm conviction that Syria's future cannot include Assad in power. But this deliberation and the actions that we are contemplating are not about regime change. And we believe, as I said earlier in answer to Mark's question, that resolution of this conflict has to come through political negotiation and settlement.
And because so much blood and treasure has been spilled and spent in both Afghanistan and Iraq, if some sort of military action will be taken, obviously the President will be talking about that to the American people, but how much should the American people expect, prepare themselves for, in terms of sacrifices being made by people inside the armed forces? And are there cost estimates being put together in terms of how much this is going to cost, and will it run us up against that debt sooner than expected?
All excellent questions, most of them
all excellent questions. I'll only answer like one of them.
A decision has been made, and I'm not going to sort of speculate about a decision that hasn't been made yet. So a lot of those questions will certainly take once the President has announced the course of action that he's chosen. What I can tell you is the President has made clear that he does not envision a situation.
And so we've been very restrained, although diplomatically we've been very active. We've been providing a lot of humanitarian aid to people who've been displaced by the war. But what I also said was that if the Assad regime used chemical weapons on his own people, that would change some of our calculations. And the reason has to do with not only international norms, but also America's core self-interest. We've got a situation in which you've got a well-established international norm against the use of chemical weapons. Syria has one of the largest stockpiles in the world of chemical weapons. This is a volatile country in a very volatile region. We've got allies bordering Syria. Turkey is a NATO ally. Jordan, a close friend that we work with a lot. Israel is very close by. We've got bases throughout the region. We cannot see a breach of the non-proliferation norm that allows potentially chemical weapons to fall into the hands of all kinds of folks. So what I've said is that we have not yet made a decision, but the international norm against the use of chemical weapons needs to be kept in place, and nobody disputes, or hardly anybody disputes, that chemical weapons were used on a large scale in Syria against civilian populations. We have looked at all the evidence, and we do not believe the opposition possessed
and potential action in Syria
and
soaring in the night sky, but this is only a drill.
Underestimated what the toll would be of an Arab Spring.
Well, I think we anticipated this would be a really difficult process. I mean, we've got a region that for decades had basically been under autocratic rule, and people had been suppressed. And there were no traditions of civil society. There were no traditions of political freedom. And then suddenly, folks are allowed to express themselves, but a lot of their organizing principles end up being around extremist agendas in some cases. More moderate forces sometimes haven't yet got their act together. So we anticipated that this was going to be. So we don't have
Blackhawk
a very
choppers
good option,
soaring to the night sky, but this is only a drill.
But what I am clear about is that if the United States stands by its core values and its core interests, if we're very clear about
I'm just trying to wake
making
you up,
sure that we're stopping
This is going to be crazy, so goldendebateShow,
very clear about our commitment to the safety and security of Israel. If we are clear about
soaring to the night sky, but this is only a drill
that affects the entire global economy, but also if we're clear about our values and that we believe in inclusive governments, that we believe in the protection of minority rights, that we believe in women's rights, that we believe that over time it's better for us to be representative of the will of their people as opposed to being dictated to.
Blackhawk choppers soaring to the night sky, but this is only a drill.
Secret Service, but I got my own SK. See Hillary, that's my motherfucking nigga. I hang in D.C. with them Senate House killers. Baraka Flocka blame one hood ass nigga. In the 6'4", bending corners, my nigga. Got a main bitch, got a mistress, a couple daughters, I'm so hood rich. My staff go hard, we be smoking. I pass bills free, shawty, no joking. Hey, what I stand for? Change, nigga. I'ma die for this country, man, I swear to God. In the trap with some killers and some hood niggas. Where you at? Where's your trap? You ain't hood, nigga. Keep this shit 300, put that shit on my hood. Crips fucking with me, G's in the vice lords. Essays in the Miko, freestyle off the dome. President Baraka Flocka flame is fucking on. I'm the head of the motherfucking state, nigga. Bringing change, nigga. What the fuck you thinking, nigga?
goldendebateShow, themotormob.com. Like, comment, share, and download, baby. We're
it's
on the
so serious.
President, here, senator from Illinois. Yeah, his criteria compared to John McCain.
Blackhawk choppers soaring to the night sky, but this is only a drill.
Home cook, then how can they go about macaroni and cheese incorporated in a broader fashion and understand that it can be more than just dressing, more than just a corner? If you're doing, a nice mac and cheese.
And a mac and cheese costume.
Get that mac and cheese. Everybody deserves their mac and cheese.
I'm trying to wake you up.
So can you explain to the people what the mac and cheese thing's all about, so people don't get it?
Mac and cheese is an oppression food.
That's ready for it, everybody.
Get that mac and cheese. Everybody deserves their mac and cheese.
Vampires are trying to cage us. Mac and cheese.
Because of man-made climate change, specifically meaning warming that comes from green energy.
Democracy Now! What evidence has the U.S. or Britain presented showing that the Syrian government definitively used chemical weapons in the attack?
So far, no evidence has been presented as to who carried out this attack. Reports that will come from the UN inspectors will not include an investigation of who carried out the attack. Their mandate is quite narrow, just to find out what was used. Was it indeed a chemical weapon, as is assumed, but not certainly proven yet? But they will not be bringing in evidence of who carried it out. There is a report yesterday in Yediot Aharonot, the Israeli mass daily, claiming that it was Israeli officials who provided the Obama administration with what is considered considered by Obama's people apparently to be definitive proof that it was the regime in Syria.
I'm just trying to
Black Hawk
wake you up,
choppers
everybody.
soaring through the night sky, but this is only a drill. Black Hawk choppers soaring through the night sky, but this is only a drill.
That's gonna wake you up. Calico. There's other guys, what they look like, I don't know. Been told people I can do a better job. Through your speeches, your campaign, you had the media, you had money, you had all these people behind you, support system, conferences, conventions, you had red state, blue state, so shut up.
They're having trouble getting the gold. It's being bought so quick.
Yo, this shit is massive or mass like hysteria, it's area, buckled on with malaria.
If you're too afraid to stand up and defend this nation and its constitution, then what will you do in China? Attack for anybody else.
Looking like it's Optimus Prime, we'll make a
if you're too afraid to stand up and defend this nation and its constitution, then
where should we go?
Early morning mob .com.
Yeah, is King Midas certified stuff?
It's always King Midas certified. Yow.
If you're too afraid,
shining the light on the darkness.
Last night, speaking with foreign ministers from around the world about the gravity of the situation, I went back and I watched the videos. The videos that anybody can watch on social media. I watched them one more gut-wrenching time. It's really hard to express in words the human suffering that they lay out before us. As a father, I can't get the image out of my head.
If you're too afraid to stand up and defend this nation and its constitution, then what will you do if China attacks anybody else?
In their bed, without a drop of blood, with invisible wounds, body supporting thousands.
Come on that thing, brother, looking for some reps. They looking for some text.
Well, I'm not going to get into the specifics about our diplomatic conversations with anybody on this, except to say what we said over the weekend, that the Secretary has been very clear about our assessment of what happened in the situation, and that chemical weapons use is completely unacceptable. I think he also made a very strong point today that anybody who thinks that this could be manipulated evidence, that these videos could be doctored somehow, need to check their conscience, because it's ridiculous. So I think that's a key point that we've been making with.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley. Good evening. You just heard the Secretary of Defense say it. U.S. military forces are ready to go if and when the President gives the green light for a strike against Syria. This would be punishment for that chemical weapons attack
water bottles.
More than 3.
Oh yes, it's time. Golden Infinity. Buy beer. Buy beer. Seeds. Water filters. Straws. Dutches. Hit 'em with it. It's fucking apocalypse, everybody. It's an infowar for your mind. Nah, man, just stay golden.
Hello, everybody. It's Ken Mullen from Freedom in Radio. I hope you're doing very well. This is the truth about Syria,
Hallelujah,
but we are not going to delve into the arcane and medieval details of the Syrian religious/statist conflicts. We're going to talk about principles of war in general and show how they apply. It's very important to conceptualize from the instance to the abstract so that we can prevent disasters like this in the future. Most people make a mistake when they look at war, and they believe that war is about the control of natural resources. Oil, agricultural land, gold, you name it. And once they pierce through the veil of propaganda about the noble virtue of whoever's doing the violence, they think that somehow it's control of a basket of resources that are used to then
mac and cheese, everybody.
Create wealth for the state and fund the military and so on. This is a fundamental mistake. And as long as you make this mistake, if you are making this mistake, you will not, I think, see through the fog of war to what is really going on. It's true that wars are fought to control resources, but they are not resources from nature. The resources that are controlled in any attempt to gain control of a government are human beings. Human beings are the fundamental and ultimate resource in the world.
Well, the problems are getting
you can't expect oil to walk itself out of the ground, and crops do not fertilize plants, and reap themselves. It is human beings that fundamentally are trying to be controlled, trying to be managed, trying to be restricted, trying to be taxed. When you have any group, whether internal or external, trying to gain control of a state, and this is what is occurring in Syria. There's a despot in power, and there are people who are frustrated at their lack of freedoms who are attempting to gain control of the state. What that means is to gain control of the tax livestock. You have to look at this as if you were a cow in a field, going to be milked, you're going to get your babies taken away from you, you're going to get a slaughterhouse, and there are two farmers who are trying to gain control of the farm. And what does this mean? Well, it means that two people, or two groups of people, or two sections, or two factions, or two religious groups, or whatever, are trying to gain control of
if
you.
Damascus
Now,
comes under fire, it
during
will regard
our investigation
this as an attack on its
crimes against humanity and war crimes,
the thinking is that Iran could activate both Hezbollah and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. It could get them to use their fighters to attack those countries who are supportive of a US-led military strike inside Syria. At the same time, Iran could also close the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this would affect around 20% of the world's supply of petroleum. The head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard has also said that if Damascus was to be attacked, this would see, and this is a direct quote, the immediate attack and the immediate destruction of Israel. This is, of course, something that the Israelis are taking seriously. The official word from the Israeli leadership is that they are not involved in anything inside Syria, but that they, of course, will respond, and respond harshly if they come under attack. The Israeli army is calling up reservists. At the same time, the Israeli army has deployed the Iron Dome anti-missile defenses
going off right now as we
sectors over the north of the country. The army has been queuing up in the thousands at local post offices and other outlets to collect gas masks. At the same time, there have been emergency drills held at various schools, and also there are many who are actually clearing out their bomb shelters now for fear.
Any action we take or others take would have to be legal, it would have to be proportionate, it would have to be specifically to deter and degrade the future use of chemical weapons. Let me stress
I'm not going to do a legal analysis on many things, but certainly not a historical event that happened some time ago. I just don't think that's relevant for this discussion today.
All historical events happened some time ago. It's about chemical weapons. Their use is wrong, and the world shouldn't stand idly by.
And Phyllis Bennis, what kind of legal justification, then, do you think that the Obama administration might use for this? And what kinds of options are available to him?
Well, you know, the decision to go to the Security Council that the British are doing today is, as you mentioned earlier, guaranteed to get a veto, certainly by Russia, likely by China as well. Although it's conceivable that they're likely to veto. They may not even get 9 sufficient votes. But what's dangerous here is that the United Nations Charter, which is the fundamental component of international law governing issues of war and peace, is very, very clear on what constitutes the legal use of military force. There is no question that having used chemical weapons, whoever used it, is a huge war crime. It's a specific violation of the Chemical Weapons Treaty. It's also a war crime, or potentially even a crime against humanity. The problem is we don't know yet who is responsible. The U.S. is hinting that it may use the Kosovo precedent of 1999 as a way to get around the prohibition, the absolute prohibition, on using military force unless it is immediate self-defense, which no one in Washington is claiming that the use of these horrible weapons in Syria somehow threatens the United States.
But this is only a drill.
Or that the Security Council agrees, which we know is not going to happen. The Kosovo precedent basically said in 1999,
that the Syrian regime maintains custody of these chemical weapons.
So, we know, as you said, this military strike could come soon. Tricky calculation by the Obama administration. They want to strike hard enough to punish the Assad regime, but they don't want to get pulled into a prolonged war.
Down there in one of those catacombs, there's other guys that they look like, I don't know. This don't make no sense, everybody.
We have additional information about this attack.
That there will be a price to pay for killing innocent men, women, and children with gas. I mean, he's got so many stockpiles of it. If he thinks he can get away with it, he'll do it again, and so will 100 other despots in the world.
Deserves their
and that's why I think it's important for the West to send a message. Now, I don't think the U.S. should do it alone. I think it needs to be done in conjunction with our NATO allies. I liken this situation to the 1999 situation in Kosovo.
To engage in a tactical military strike with Syria, as President Obama echoed the statements of multiple high-ranking officials saying that the U.S. must act on claims that Syria has used chemical weapons against its citizens. Evidence that a limited attack may be forthcoming, United Nations investigators hurriedly left the country ahead of schedule on Saturday, taking an unknown route to Lebanon, and are said to be carrying samples from within the chemical weapons site with information that the U.S. may use to launch a strike. Firefighters are facing shifting winds and dry environments, making containing the wildfire at the Yosemite National Park in California difficult, with state officials estimating that the fire has grown to over 210,000 acres and has already destroyed over 100 buildings. In related news, and a reminder why prisons are so popular within the United States, news agencies are reporting that over 600 firefighters currently battling the California fire are prison inmates taking part in a lockup work program that pays prisoners an average of $1 per day. Analysts are warning that India's economy may have reached a tipping point and may be experiencing a full economic crisis, as figures show that the value of the rupee has dropped by 25% within a 3-month period. Following the report of rare snowfall in Chile's Atacama Desert on Tuesday, several South American countries are continuing to experience unusual snowfall, stranded over 10,000 people in causing forcing the government to drop emergency medicine and supplies into at least one stranded city. Scientists are reporting a large increase in activity at Alaska's Veniaminoff volcano on Friday.
Yo, this is King Midas, and you'll definitely listen to the Debate Show.
That's all good, dude. We about to get it in.
Be introduced.
Woo!
But the video drone signal delivered under a test pattern, anything. And I went home, and that was the last day that I had a television set. At the time I was married, and my husband wouldn't let me throw it out. And then when we were separated,
down there, one of those catacombs. There's other guys that they look like. I don't know. This don't make no sense to me.
I haven't had one since. I had a decorator once who insisted that I have one when I worked in the Bush administration. In the day
moving events
I left
into them,
the Bush administration, I gave it away.
When it might just be a bad day, but
I don't even want to discuss it. Just take it out of my house.
In Putin's case, there is an argument that
Mr. West, may I remind you,
having been in control of Russia, roughly speaking, for over 10 years, he sort of is the state.
And I'll tell you a very interesting thing. I once did
I'm wondering to what degree are the problems that
it was about 2002.
Steve and Angela
I spoke in Sweden, I spoke in New Zealand, I spoke in America in about 10 different places. And in each audience, I asked the audience, how many people here watch TV? And no matter where I was throughout the globe, less than 10% of my audience watch TV.
Soaring through the night sky, but this is only a drill.
People who don't watch TV, so they are interested and capable of knowing what's really going on because they're not getting that chemical injection from the tapeworm.
This morning, potential targets have been identified, allies consulted, and military commanders await only the green light to launch attacks. These images seen round the world have had a profound effect in Washington. Secretary of State John Kerry saying in no uncertain terms that what the Assad regime has done will not go unpunished.
Make no mistake,
to untold numbers of citizens, and because of the crisis which is even now developing, this radio station will remain on the air day and night. This station has hundreds of other pooling their resources through any emergency image of the
ghost in the dark.
While the administration is convinced a chemical attack occurred, the UN is proceeding with its investigation. Those inspectors who came under sniper fire donning bulletproof vests to interview survivors.
Talking about all that talking like this, like that, all day in your hood, golden shirts, golden roads, strobe lights, leave it like it is.
This report I received today is a monumental document.
The Black Hawk choppers soaring in the night sky, but this is only a drill.
It is a very, very important piece of America's history and will shape America's future in ways that will make us a more honorable, more successful, and more ethical country. What this committee learned, I would like to review today.
Well, the problems are getting bigger. They say that Congress isn't doing its job because they're broke.
Because I think it must be engraved on our national memory. Thousands of government-sponsored experiments did take place at hospitals, universities, and military bases around our nation. The goal was to understand the effects of radiation exposure on the human body. While most of the tests were ethical by any standards, some were unethical, not only by today's standards, but by the standards